Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson and this is Tales from the Backlog, where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a returning friend of the show, one host of Super Deluxe Gamescast, and an ace pilot. Welcome back to the show, Derek Van Dyke.
Hello, wonderful to be back.
Yeah. It's great to have you back. We previously we did our episode about God Hand. For people who want to go back, that's episode 118. And
wonderful
we're
game,
back today.
wonderful episode.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was just going to say, we're back today with another really cool game. It's going to be a really fun one to talk about. So it's great to have you back.
Another absolute banger. You only bring me in for the good ones.
Absolutely, yeah. You have a type for sure. Today's game is Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown, which is an air combat game developed and published by Bandai Namco for contemporary consoles and PC in 2019. It's been a minute since this game came out. I don't know about you, but I've been watching all these showcases here in 2025. Been like, Ace Combat 8, give me Ace Combat 8. I need an update.
It's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, they've made it abundantly clear they're at work on the next one. I just think these games are not made by a giant team, and they take their time, and they are afforded the time for a small team to work on it lovingly over a period of many years. Instead of it having to be the like quadruple A churn machine of a lot of modern game development.
Yeah, I'm patient, but I'm a little bit itchy. That's all I'm saying. Yeah,
I mean, we'll talk about this as we talk about the game, but like, I am not entirely sure what they can even do with Ace Combat 8 at this point.
Yeah, we can definitely dig into that for sure. There's not a whole lot of room for escalation at this point, I don't think.
Right.
So, past episode on the show, in case anyone here is a big Ace Combat fan, I have an episode about Ace Combat 5. That's episode 153 with Marco Meatball. That is a really fun conversation as well. We're back with another one today. And if this is your first time here, first of all, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for clicking on a new show. Here's how spoilers work. We're not going to spoil the story of Ace Combat 7 for a while. So if you haven't played, if you don't want to know what happens in the story, you're safe for a while. Check in the timestamps. There's a show note for when spoilers begin for Ace Combat 7 here. So we have some elevator pitches for the top of the show. If you don't know what Ace Combat or Ace Combat 7 is, my pitch relates to the rest of the series, but it's everything you already loved about the Ace Combat series with just a little bit more under the hood that gives some more flourishes and stuff like that. Derek, what's the pitch from you?
My pitch is, what if mecha anime was planes?
Yeah, that's
which is going to be
fantastic.
funny because mecha anime fans will be like, well, Macross, and not exactly. Mix a little Metal Gear in there, weirdly enough.
Absolutely. I have a couple bullet points that will specifically reference Metal Gear as we go through. This is,
I'm glad we're on the same wavelength here.
Yeah. Absolutely. This my like getting into the Ace Combat series has coincided with me playing through the Metal Gear Solid series for the first time. So
it's so funny because
it's perfect.
I just got done playing the original Metal Gear Solid for the first time.
Yeah.
I've played the whole series, but the version of Metal Gear Solid 1 I played was Twin Snakes.
Mm-hmm.
This is my first time with the PS1 version.
The original. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting experience. Yeah. Going all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So some quick stats, I suppose, before we get too deep into Ace Combat here. I played this on PC. It took me 15 hours to get through the campaign. Does that sound about right for you for a playthrough?
So I originally played on PS4 and reviewed it for SDGC.
Nice.
That sounds about right for a first playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
I will note that on PC, I have about 30 hours logged, and I've played through the campaign and the DLC and done some free missions, and I'm at about 30 hours. So I think when you know what you're doing, you can burn through it quicker, but
Yeah.
frequently the case.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot, but Ace Combat missions can be quite long, and you'll do a lot of restarting and dying and stuff like that. So it's not like a streamlined 15 hours for me. It's because I died and had to restart a bunch of missions a lot of times. So directors for Ace Combat 7, 2 primary credits to Yuta Hamanaka and Masashi Koyanagi. And I just want to give them credit for helming this cool project here. And now we rewind. We talk about our histories with the series. I don't know. I don't remember at this point how I pinned you, Derek, as an Ace Combat sicko, but we got there pretty quickly when I was like putting feelers out. So
you know what it was? What it was is you were talking about playing the series, and I remember commenting and being like, "You are in for some shit."
Okay. Oh yeah.
I think I had made it clear, like, I love this franchise and I love that you're getting into it, and you were like, "Well, I happen to know exactly how we can make use of this."
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It was as I said on the Ace Combat 5 episode, it was basically love at first flight. We decided was the phrase in that episode. So let's talk about you. How did you get into this series? When did you start? Did you play? You said you reviewed Ace Combat 7 right on release.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I first played the series with Ace Combat 4 back in the early days of the PS2. Ace Combat 4 is one of those like fundamental early PS2 games for a lot of people. I think it's both a tremendous game in its own right, and it landed during a very strong early year for the PS2. And it was one of those things where, like, if you had a PS2 early on, this was one of those games to have. And I think that helped catapult the series to a greater level of mainstream recognition to some extent, right? I mean, I don't think it blew up until 7, but a ton of people played 4. And then from there, like, I played 5, I played 0, I played 6. Like, I played them as they came out.
Nice.
So I've stuck with the franchise since, because I just love these games and they're so unique and there's just not a lot like them.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, this has been late 2024, and then 2025 has been the year of getting into Ace Combat for me. So I played 0 for the first time. I had my recording set up for Ace Combat 5. I had a bunch of time, and I saw 0 was a prequel to 5, so I played that first.
That's got to be weird, man. 0 was your first Ace Combat?
Yeah. Well,
that's got to be weird.
I guess. I mean, I didn't have a lot of context, but
because 0 is difficult, it's narratively kind of a mess. I like it. I love to play it, but like 0 is for people who played 5 and are such sickos about 5, which is most people's favorite Ace Combat, to be fair, that they needed more. And 0 was like the challenge and lore behind 5.
Interesting. Yeah. So that was what was cool about playing 0 first, is 0 kind of lets you play through one of the pivotal events in the lore of Ace Combat. So that kind of foundation was cool. And so I played 0, I played 5, did that podcast, played 7. This is all happening in the span of a couple of months, basically. So, I mean, I'm still going to keep going through the series. What actually got me into the idea of trying the series, because I said this on the AC5 episode, which you haven't had a chance to hear yet, but I had always just like totally brushed off Ace Combat as a thing that I would ever want to play. Just, you see the cover and you're like, oh, it's a fucking jet. Who cares? I'll buy another
games,
RPG.
Woo.
Yeah. Like, I like a Star Fox, but, whatever. So it wasn't until 2 things. Gene Park tweeted about how good the story in AC7 was, and it like kind of like, I was like, how could it possibly be so good that you're going to tweet about how good it is? And that like kind of got the curiosity going. And then a friend of the show, Marco Meatball, has a lot of Ace Combat videos on his YouTube channel talking about the music. And I the music was the thing where I listened to a couple of tracks and I was like, holy shit, this is so fucking good. I have to play this to experience this music in game.
Did you know about Daredevil before you went into 7?
I did. I had heard Daredevil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that, I don't know if that's I don't know if that takes away from the moment or not. We'll talk when we get to spoiler
we'll get
section.
There. Yeah, we'll get there. So we can just easily say I'm a huge fan of the series now, and then Ace Combat 7 in particular delivers on the things that I want out of an Ace Combat game. The gameplay is super fun. Like it's been basically unchanged since the PS2. There's a couple little new maneuvers that you can do in AC7, but other than that the fundamentals are the same. It
kind of feels like it's just the most Ace Combat that an Ace Combat can be, right?
Yeah, it's just a few little extra things to up the Ace Combat level. Yeah. The music is fucking great. The spectacle's fucking great. I didn't love the story in AC7. It was a bit of a letdown compared to 5, which was the one I played right before it. But it has a bunch of fun moments in there. So like, even if I don't think it's the most coherent and like,
I think 7's story is not super coherent, but I think its characters are still characters that you can latch onto. I think where Ace Combat 7 is very, it's good characters and it's good ideas that are not necessarily strung together as well as I would like.
Mm-hmm.
But my attitude towards story in Ace Combat in general is that you are there almost more for the vibes than you are for the in-between storytelling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you are catching the beats, but the beats are good. The beats are real good.
And even here in 7, where I have, bigger critiques about like the storytelling than I did in previous games, those major plot beats are cool as hell. Like, they're really fun to just be like, oh, that's what's going on in this story. That's super weird. I'm into it. So we kind of got like everything that I wanted from an Ace Combat game. And then, just a little bit of newer technology lets them kind of up the spectacle a little bit. We'll talk about some of that stuff later, but this game is awesome. Like, I knew it was going to be awesome, but I can just confirm this game is awesome. I had a great time. I'm going to continue playing the rest of the series. I'm just going to keep plugging away.
I don't know how badly you need to go back to the PS1 era games. I'm not super fond of any of them. I think a lot of people are really fond of 3 because of how different it is. That it like pushes further like into like hard sci-fi territory.
Yeah.
But like, I think the run of 4, 5, 6, 7 is such a good run of games. I'll also say this. I'm gonna be this is spicy for some Ace Combat fans.
Okay.
Play Assault Horizon.
Okay.
You should play Assault Horizon. You might not even have heard about that one yet. It came out in the Xbox 360 era. I think after 6. Okay. It might be. I don't remember if it's before or after 6.
Yeah.
So Assault Horizon is the like very westernized Ace Combat. In terms of its approach to things, it's definitely like 360 era AAA Ace Combat. And it takes place like on Earth, like you were a United States like Air Force pilot,
not
like
Strange
not
Real.
Strange Real, the fictional world of Ace Combat.
Right.
But like, man, Assault Horizon's a lot of fun. If you've got a fondness for and recognizing you're going in for the Michael Bay of Ace Combat games, it's kind of sick.
Nice. I think I was reading a little bit of like history with AC7, and the series was kind of like not floundering, but not prospering. And I think that I read that Assault Horizon did well enough that it gave them confidence to make another one, which then became AC7. So
good.
Yeah, we can at least be thankful for that, for sure. So let's take a little music break. We want to pepper in as many music breaks as possible for Ace Combat games. We'll come back. We'll set up the story. So, Ace Combat 7 continues in that setting of Strange Real, like we said before, which is, for people who are not familiar, it's modeled after our real world, but the country names are different. They're not that different, but they're different, like, Eurasia.
It's weird because you've got like
Europe
3 major, like, continent groups.
Superpowers,
Instead of 2. Like, you don't have the Americas and then like Europe and Asia in terms of your like longitude, which is which?
Longitude's the vertical one.
But left and right on a globe,
Yeah.
on a Mercator projection. You've got 3 major, because you've got Oceania Euctibania on one continent group. You've got Eusia and Erusia, and then you've got Emeria and Estivakia. And then you've just got Antarctica is still there, as Antarctica.
Unchanged. It's already sci-fi enough. It doesn't have to be changed. Yeah.
We don't got to make up a new word for Antarctica. We're not going there.
Yeah. So there's a couple things in the backstory of Ace Combat, not to get too deep into it, but Ace Combat lore does canonically begin with the Big Bang. More important to say that for this series than any other game series, because in the backstory, global tensions are kind of always high in this world because there was an asteroid that was coming to hit the Earth. They built all these super weapons to blow up the asteroid. They avoided the extinction level event, but pieces of the asteroid still hit a bunch of places and basically fucked the world up. So all the countries are just basically high tension all the time. Plus, now we have these sci-fi super weapons all over the world from that, quest to destroy that asteroid. So in this game, surprise tensions are high. Country surprise attacks another country. You play as a pilot named Trigger, who is on a mission to rescue the president from this big space elevator that was built. It's a classic Ace Combat. This thing was built as a symbol of peace and cooperation among nations, and now it's a thing that's been corrupted into the reason why these countries hate each other. So the inciting event in the game is you go on this rescue mission to rescue the president. Someone shoots down the rescue helicopter that the president's in. Everyone's immediately like, that was you, Trigger, you piece of shit, and you get thrown in jail. And it's this weird thing. We start to get into this real anime tone in AC7 because it's a jail of only pilots. For some reason.
we've got a prison for criminal pilots, and we're gonna make you be our fucking our Top Gun Suicide Squad.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the themes that every Ace Combat game that I've played plays with, is that theme of you the soldiers, you are disposable in the eyes of the government and the people making the decisions about where you go and who you fight, etc. But it's tripled down in AC7 because you're prisoners, and they say to your face, we don't care if you come back. Basically.
It's so the whole early chunk of you have the most aggressive AWACS operator.
Yeah.
Who was just constantly like, hey, by the way, I want you to remember, fuck you.
Yeah.
Nobody loves you. You were adopted.
Yes, exactly. Your squadron, they call it a penal squadron in the game, but your code name for a squadron is spare squadron, as if you didn't, get it, that they don't care about you. You're spare squadron.
The AWACS is named Band Dog, literally an old timey kind of guard dog. They're taking the theming all the way.
Yeah. So basically you play through the events of this war, this kind of beating back this invasion and then taking over more territory as you inevitably win a bunch of fights. You and your squadron basically are the reason why anything good or any victories happen throughout the course of the war, etc. But so that's basically one half of the story is the story of Trigger and Spare Squadron, the prisoners that have to go out and fight, etc. There's another half of the story. It's this frame story told by these 3 narrators. There is a character named Avril who, in the opening cutscene, it's kind of funny. She fixes up this old plane and she's going to go take it up into the sky for the first time. And it's this big triumphant thing for her. But war is declared 30 seconds before she takes off. So she gets shot down and thrown in the penal colony as well, just for bad timing.
And I love Avril. Of the 3 characters of the frame narrative, Avril's the one that I like, and the perspective that I like, because she comes from a perspective of being on the good guy side, but hypercritical of the Ocean government. She's the one who kind of brings the very much the awe and admiration of the sky in this like bright, lofty sense, and of freedom. And then just like the character archetype of like, we've got this spunky, like tomboyish, snark ass mechanic, called the Scrap Queen. With the bum leg and the leg brace, so also some disabled representation. Yeah, I really like Avril, and I really like kind of the attitude and energy she brings, which I think that aggressive energy fits well with so much of the story being focused on like, and by the way, you're a convict and you're here to make up for your sins,
Yeah. You shot down the president's helicopter, but also you're the best we got, so you're going up there. Avril and another character share that characteristic where they're just here for the love of the game. Like, she loves the sky and the romantic idea of going up in the air, her family history, etc. There's this aging ace pilot named Mihai who
no, say the full name.
I didn't write the full name down. Do you know the full name?
Because it's like a paragraph long.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember I was streaming and I was like, I remember comparing it to like when Dikembe Mutombo said his full name for the first time and everyone freaked out.
Hang on, I'm going to see if I can find the full name real quick. This is important because I know the wiki's got me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know the wikis. Here we go. Because the cutscene says, his full name is Mihaly Dumitriu Margareta Corneliu Leopold Blanca Carol Aeon Ignatius Raphael Maria Niketas A. Shilage. And I just went, no, it's not. That's not his name. You made that up. You said Aeon at one point. You're just... No.
Just throwing out terms, yeah. What I was going to say is Mihai is also just here for the love of the game. They're studying him. He's the best pilot that's ever lived or something like that. And they're studying him when he's out on these missions. And he doesn't give a shit about any of that. He just wants to go up and fly and find, again, very anime, a rival type character who can match his own skill in the sky and like someone he can respect up there. That's all
he's just a Ronin
about.
Looking for the ultimate opponent, basically.
Yeah. Yep. So there's also a couple other characters. There's the princess of Erusia and her dog that was part of a meme.
JPEG. Yeah. We love him.
I looked it up. They swear that dog is a real dog filmed on motion camera. It just sat very still because he's such a good boy.
You actually can see the dog is breathing. You can see his sides go in and out on the tarmac. Like, it's just hilarious because it sits so still that it looks like a PNG that they applied like a little bit of like warping to. Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
But it is a good dog. So it's the princess's dog. She's the princess of Erusia. That's the country that invaded to start this war. And then there is a doctor named Dr. Schroeder, military scientist doing research with Mihai's flight data. And we'll get to their roles in the story a little bit later. I would say that the story of AC7 is a fun story more than an affecting story. I would say there are parts in 0 and 5 that were like legitimately affecting for me.
Yes, and 4 likewise.
But 7's a fun story.
Yeah. So what makes 4 and 5 and 0 work so well is how well they fit within, and 6, honestly, is that you understand the politic of it all, right? You're really getting deeper into the political intrigue that is driving each country and its motivations. You're getting into the history of, this is the country on the continent that managed to find economic prosperity in the aftermath because they did not get hit by meteors versus their counterpart that, usually is the one that got hit by meteors and is the one that got put into a more desperate socioeconomic position and is lashing out through the war economy because it's the only way that they might have forward. And 7, because it's basically built around claiming ownership of the space elevator.
Yeah.
Sort of. But it doesn't feel like they focus on the why of the war enough.
Yeah, I would agree. I also thought that I guess this is a kind of a constant thing, but like Trigger, your main character, is not really a character. It's just a cipher for you to be in the squadron, basically.
Yes.
The other characters, Avril, Dr. Schroeder, the princess, Mihai, I didn't really care about any of them, basically. So like if I don't care about the characters, even on like this, actually, it might be even more so because like in 5, not to, do too many comparisons, but 5, you had like your squad that you stayed with through the whole game. 5 has those
2 specific squad mates that are really powerful characters that stick with you. Right. And I don't think, like, you have Count in AC7, but Count is not given enough to work with to be much of a standout character.
Right. So you have a squad mate who's just kind of like this cocky asshole, but that's basically his whole character. I don't think that the characters have the same amount of depth or intrigue to them as they maybe did in previous games. So that puts an upper limit, I think, on like how emotionally affected I can be by the story. But I was there for all the cool, things that happen throughout, how these stories of Dr. Schroeder and Mihai and Trigger's Squadron and all those things, how that comes together is really cool. We'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But it is a game where I'm along for the ride. The music's going to take me for a ride more so than the plot is, I think.
It doesn't help that, like, again, Count as your primary like partner.
Yeah.
Filling this like kind of slightly jerk-ass like rival role, but like Ace Combat 5 has a better one of those.
Yeah.
And it has Kei Nagase, who is like, you have a second very good partner character to bounce off of. So the two partners in 5 get to play off each other. Count never really gets anybody consistent to bounce off of, and I think that your in-game cast is worse for it, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, this is the collection of people around. I don't think I could tell you the name of another person on the squadron, even though I spent 15 hours with most of them.
Well, a lot of them trade out, I mean, and you lose almost all of them, when you eventually, like, you swap squadrons,
Yeah. So there is just like a limit on the story a little bit. It was also one where I spent like a long time either being confused about what was going on or just like not really being super invested in what was going on in the story here. Again, it was more just like a fun ride, fun locations to go do your missions in, fun music taking you through. Again, like the music does more lifting as far as like taking you through the emotional journey than the story. Like even it's like 90% music.
That and certain really well written, well delivered lines, right?
Yeah.
That like stand out and sell a moment, even if not necessarily the interconnective tissue. I will also say, I think one of Ace Combat 7's biggest strengths is also holding it back, which is Ace Combat 7 is so lovingly in reference to 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And to 6 to a certain degree as well, but it wants to pull in elements, moments, ideas from 4, 5, and 6 and give you bigger versions of that. And the problem is that means that you're basically building a story out of puzzle pieces that were not meant to fit together. Again, we'll talk more about this in the spoiler section, but like, they're making a lot of really powerful moments, but the connective tissue isn't there because you started from, we've got to do something with this, and we've got to do one of these kinds of missions, and we've got to do this thing because it's what we did in this other game and people really loved it. And we wrapped it all around the space elevator, and then the space elevator never got to connect well to the through line of the plot.
Yeah. I would say a couple of the big moments are references. So I didn't play Ace Combat 4, so that was a big moment. Like as soon as we started chatting back and forth about this, such and such thing that happened, you were like, we have to talk about this. And I was like, okay, I guess we can make a point too. And then it was like, it's a reference from a previous game that I had no context for, so it doesn't work for me in the same way. And if you haven't played those other ones, there's a big thing at the very end of the game that I was like, holy shit, it's that. But if you haven't played one of those other games, you'd be like, So I do think you're right. Like, it's a strength for people who've been there the whole time, but for even someone like me who's been there for half of the ones they're referencing, they miss out on some big impact by making it referential.
You miss out on the member berries, right? But they do still build really sick moments out of and really sick cool ideas.
Moments for sure.
You don't have to have played like 5, and 5 is the one with the Arcbird, right? Or was that 6? Okay, 5 is the one with the Arcbird. And like, you don't have to have played 5 to appreciate the Arsenal Birds.
Right.
But if you played 5, you recognize like, oh, they come out of the Arcbird. I get this. This is the next evolution of that, but built specifically for war instead of peace.
And if you haven't played 5, you see the Arsenal Birds and you're like, whoa, that's a huge fucking military plane. It's really fucking cool.
Rips.
Yeah.
Did you play the DLC missions?
Nope, I didn't.
Okay. So like the DLC missions bring in a nuclear sub that is explicitly a like super beefed up successor to the Synfaxi series from 5. Yeah. So like those nuclear subs are a big part of 5, and it's really cool to see that element come back and iterated on. But if you didn't play 5, it's fine. It's a big fuck off nuclear sub with railguns. Like,
right, exactly. Sick. Yeah. You'll be okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you, because like at first, and I think the answer actually might not be as complicated as I'm maybe making it out to be, but Ace Combat does have a continuing story. You can read through like the events. Most of the games fit into that strange real canon. But would you agree with me that like it's not actually necessary to play any one game before playing any other game in the series?
With that. I would agree with that. To the extent that that's not true, it's because I think moments in 7 are built up to be more powerful when they are calling back to things you experienced in 4 and 5. And like, again, the example I don't want to give away, because for me it was like a really big holy shit moment, is a perfect example of like, that's explained well enough in the narrative to what's going on, and it's still a very cool moment. But having like, that was so much more powerful for the way that it interfaces with my experience with Ace Combat 4. So
I agree.
But like, it's not always easy to find a copy of Ace Combat 4, Yeah. So if you couldn't, then it's fine. Play 7. It's here. It's available. It's very good.
Yeah. And it's exactly like you said, like that moment you're talking about, even if you don't have that memory from Ace Combat 4, the thing that you're looking at in Ace Combat 7 is cool on its face. So like, you don't need that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've mentioned music a couple times, so it's time to take a music break, and then when we come back, we will talk about this soundtrack. Music in Ace Combat 7 is primarily credited to Keiki Kobayashi, a name that is consistent for a long time in the series here. This is, I think that if you like saw a video of Ace Combat, you'd be like, that gameplay looks pretty fun. But I think the actual MVP of the series, the thing that ties everything together, is how fucking good these soundtracks are. These are like incredible video game soundtracks. Really, really good at taking you through the emotional journey. Especially one thing I forgot to mention, as far as story delivery goes, you hear a lot of chatter on the radio that I personally cannot pay attention to because I'm trying to not get shot down out of the sky.
You got to be a better pilot.
I know.
You got to be better.
I know, or I need to be able to multitask better than I can. But the thing that helps with that is the music really takes you through the emotions of not only like the mission you're in, but the entire story. If you look at it all as like a giant arc, the music, especially in AC7 here, really like, you may play a mission and be like, the music's kind of reserved here. And there's a reason for that within the grand scope of the entire soundtrack and the entire game. So I fucking love this soundtrack. It's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. There are so many pieces that I truly just love from this game. I mean, I love, like, Dragon Breath is one I really love. I see you've made note for Faceless Soldier. I really love, like, Battle for Farbanti. But, like, the one is fucking Daredevil.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to talk about Ace Combat 7 and not talk about the track Daredevil, because it is the piece of music that went more viral than the game itself did in a lot of ways. I mean, people doing, like, musicians doing reacts to this track, like, all over YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to talk about the track Daredevil without talking about the way that it is paced to and synchronizes to an incredibly powerful moment in the, like, maybe the climactic moment of the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, you gotta bite your tongue and not say too much.
Yeah.
But
no, it's great. And it's Daredevil is one of many that play with the main theme, the main motif of the soundtrack. And something cool that I noticed when, like, reviewing the soundtrack is when I think of leitmotif, I think of Uematsu's work in Final Fantasy. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me as far as video games go. And so you think about how, like, those were used in older games, maybe because of technological locations, but it would be mostly just bringing back the same song, the same arrangement for when a character is taking center stage in a scene or something like that. And there's, remixing, of course, that goes on. But something that's cool about the main theme of Ace Combat 7 is that it's, like, woven in so many different forms, so many different tones. It's like they use that theme in a bunch of different ways to give you this gradual buildup across the entire game, across 5, 6, 7, 8 different tracks, different levels. And then you hit that climax in Daredevil where it's like, we're setting this thing free and it's going to be the coolest moment in the entire game. It's really, really cool. And, like, there's a lot of diversity in the soundtrack too. So, like, even using that same theme, it might be in a song that sounds totally different from the last time you heard that melody. Like this, it's a really diverse soundtrack, but it all sounds like Ace Combat music. It all works with that theme. It's really good.
It's interesting how well they weave in, like, orchestra and choir and synth and, like, hard rock guitar.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and where they bring certain instruments in and out and recontextualize the leitmotif through, like, instrument choice and through it's really fantastic. I have a harder time talking about music beyond, like, it's real good, because, like, I, despite coming from a family of musicians, I somehow did not inherit the music gene at all. But the music good.
Oh, it is good. And if anyone has made it this far into the show, they've heard several songs by this point. So they're like, yeah, we know what you're talking about. It's fucking good. But there's like, I noticed there's a level where you're flying in. I cannot pronounce the name of these mountains, but it's the place in China where they modeled Avatar after the movie Avatar. Yeah. And it's got, like, this jazzy drum and upright bass song that's, like, it's not plain combat music, but it's so fucking cool as you're flying through these mountains. It's great. And then you have, like, the orchestras, you have, like, operatic vocals. Sometimes you'll get, like, a sick electric guitar solo in a song that you didn't expect an electric guitar solo in. Like I said, I think, and I don't think I'm going out on a huge limb here, but I think this is, like, the secret MVP of the series. I don't think this series would hit the same if the music was average. I think it would be a fun but somewhat forgettable series for a lot of people. But the music, like, pushes it over that level.
I think that it helps masterfully prime you to feel certain feelings and to be in a certain emotional space for the moments that the missions are setting up.
Yeah.
And I think that Ace Combat works if you're the kind of person who can just absorb the presentation of what's in front of you and get your feelings in sync with big moments of dialogue and with like big soaring, musical accompaniment. If you're able to work off of vibes, if you can sync your feelings to vibes really well, God, you are going to click so hard with Ace Combat.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the gameplay, but like that's rock solid fucking gameplay. So this is it's really doing a lot of work. The music is to bring you into that emotional state for sure.
Yeah.
It's great for that.
It's funny. It's in a similar way to the way that like the modern Doom games are great games to play, but Mick Gordon's soundtrack makes those games.
It's a great comparison. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that maybe a lot more listeners will be primed to understand that comparison point.
Yeah. If you haven't played Ace Combat, yeah. I mean, I don't remember the name of the song, but the first song in Doom 2016 where it's like set in that tone where you're going to go fucking rip some people apart,
Yeah.
Yeah. Ace Combat gives you the emotional swings of the story and can really like, especially if it's a part in the story that is really good, it can hammer that home. Like you're not going to miss how you should be feeling at this moment, for sure. Visually, I think this game looks great too. Ace Combat on the PS2 looked good, but I think that this is just a very clear thing of like, hey, they can make the clouds look so much better. They can make the weather look so much better in AC7 here. The explosions are so much better than they were on the PS2. Like they just really... It's like stuff on the periphery. It's not really that important, but like that Avatar mountains level in China, you're flying through in a fucking lightning storm and it looks incredible. And it's like just something that the PS2 couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And modern technology can just kind of like bring it up. It's just a very good looking game.
Yeah, I think the moments of like big weather and like the cloud cover and like, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Really is the most impressive thing of what they're doing. Like obviously the planes look better, but the planes look pretty good on the PS2. Yep. I mean, I think a lot of the ground detail looks better enough. Like obviously if you pause and like look, like it doesn't look that detailed when you're looking at the ground. But it's also a thing that you're flying past at, how many hundreds of feet per second?
Yeah.
And from how high in the air. So like the important thing is, can you make out tanks, buildings, points of interest, those kind of details quickly and at high speed? And in that way, like it works very well.
Yeah. One of the things about like the, newer generation of consoles and tech in general is with more visual fidelity, more stuff. Some people would complain about clutter in games like that, and visual clarity is never an issue in Ace Combat. It's just always very clear what you're supposed to be shooting at and what you're not supposed to be shooting at, kind of until later in AC7 when they start playing with that. But the clarity of like, this is what's going on in the sky around me. This is where these planes are. I mean, they have like the friendly UI HUD elements to, highlight stuff that's flying around as well, but you can see like the draw distance is good and all that. So we have this cool weather and all this, but you can still see everything that you need to see well enough. And it looks great. It's a very, pleasing game to look at. And nothing beats just fucking blowing something up close to you and seeing just a very good explosion, maybe flying through it because you're in an action movie,
right? Oh yeah. I'm sorry, dropping like a bomb on an oil refinery and watching the whole set of things just go up.
Yep,
wonderful.
Yep, good stuff. Anything else about visuals or music?
Not especially in terms of visuals. It looks good, but the graphics are not what you're here for Ace Combat.
That's true. Yeah.
Other than JPEG Dog, we're all here for JPEG Dog.
We're all here for JPEG Dog. We're here for the music and we're here for the gameplay. So let's take another music break. We'll come back and talk about what it's like to play Ace Combat 7. So I said at the top of the show that, I played Ace Combat 5, came out in 2004, and then I played Ace Combat 7, which came out 15 years later. The gameplay is basically the same. It's barely changed. In my opinion, that's a good thing. They cracked the code on how to make these fun air combat games, and they didn't fuck with what was working, at least not in the games that I played. So I'll turn over to you, Derek, here. What do you think the secret sauce is for Ace Combat gameplay?
So the secret sauce is that they're giving you just enough realism to make it feel, to somebody who doesn't know jack about planes,
like me, yeah,
like you're playing a game with some kind of realistic planes, right? You can stall out, if you slow down too much, or if you go too upright for too long, without, et cetera. The fact that on the traditional controls, you have to roll and then lift in order to actually turn, or you can do the yaw, which is like a very slight adjustment. Feels realistic, but it is an arcadey series. You do carry 70-something missiles. Yeah. Like,
your missiles recharge. If you run out of missiles, your plane will make more missiles.
Yeah. But like the thing is, like, it understands when it needs to be gamey. It's realistic in vibe where it should be. But it recognizes that the fantastical elements are necessary for making a better gameplay experience. It's not a flight sim, right? But it's not Star Fox. And I'll say the other thing that really, really is the secret sauce is mission design. And this is where Ace Combat 7 is, you have a point later, which we'll hold to the details until then. But Ace Combat 7, every mission is its own thing.
Yeah.
There is no mission that feels like this is just the same thing I did earlier. Like, much love to, there's a pretty decent Ace Combat knockoff that came out recently called Project Wingman.
Yeah.
Recently since Ace Combat 7. But the problem is Project Wingman is all missions where they put you on a map and you have to take out X amount of points worth of enemies from all across the map. And like, even the couple of those that exist in 7 are so varied in what they're setting up. And I think that mission variety gives players an almost Nintendo-like rhythm to the game where you're given these tools, and instead of just getting better and better and better at flying, you're learning to adapt them to the core skills of a very simple concept of gameplay to constantly changing conditions.
Yeah. Sometimes even within missions, and oftentimes within missions, you'll hit like a mid-mission checkpoint and suddenly it's very different what your goals are. So I agree with you. I think that's one of the things that was a point of emphasis when they were making AC7 is to continue making the missions more varied in like what you actually have to do to win. And that's, we talked earlier a little bit about, where could they go from here? And this is one of those areas where it's like they already used a bunch of ideas. Like they're going to rehash new versions of a trench run, new versions of boss fights. But
part of it's that we've had a couple of trench runs, and this is the best version of a trench run that they've done, like by a mile, I feel like. I don't know how you do a meaningfully better version of the trench run. You have like the mission where you have to take out the oil refinery and then it transitions into the sandstorm, right? And you're trying to keep inside the sandstorm because you have to go down into it in order to find the trucks that you're chasing after.
Yeah.
But also, that means you're flying very, very low altitude in very tough conditions with poor visibility. Like, I don't know how you do you brought up the lightning storm, right? Flying through around the pillars in China and getting struck by lightning multiple times and losing control of your plane in tight quarters. Like, I truly don't know what they can do next, but that just makes me excited to see it.
Yeah, I have faith. I also, a lot of the different like new and varied mission types I thought were pretty annoying. Like, I didn't love most of the missions in AC7. Like, a lot of the gimmicks, we'll say, like the sandstorm. I hated that mission. So, like,
so I think the thing about the sandstorm mission in particular, that's a perfect example to use, right? Yeah. The sandstorm mission is not a mission I would go back and replay for fun.
No.
Do you know what I mean? However, the first time John, from SDGC ever came over to my house, for us to do some charity stuff, and we're hanging out, and I showed him Ace Combat 7, and that's the mission I showed him because it's such a showcase for how insane the game can get.
Yeah.
And I think that the stress and tension of the Sandstorm mission, right, provides the tension that you get relief from in other missions. Like, I love the mission where you've got to stay under cloud cover and then jump up and take out a radar tower and go back down.
Love it.
That's sick. But that moment's sick because you have moments like the Sandstorm to give you that relative sense of freedom. Likewise, we talk about the thunderstorm in the canyon with the pillars and spires.
Yeah.
A nightmare mission to actually finish because the back half of that is so butt-puckeringly tense, but it exists to make you clench.
Yeah.
And then that means that the bits later where you are fully unshackled feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are several missions that are really tense and really difficult. And I don't want to say that the checkpoints are unfriendly, but you're not getting a checkpoint every minute of gameplay or anything like that. Like, you might get one halfway through a mission when a big change happens. So, like, you mentioned, like, Ace Combat games all have a trench run mission. This game has two, and one of them is a stealth trench run, which was really, really tense because you have the normal thing of not crashing into the sides of the trench you're flying in, but then you have to avoid these spotlights. You have to,
don't accidentally hit the weapon button.
Yeah. Never mind the fact that these are people manning spotlights who can't hear a fucking airplane flying through a canyon, but
don't question it.
Yep. Just enjoy it. But there are a lot of really tense missions. And I just thought, like, half of them were got that desired effect. And, another half of them I thought were pretty annoying to get through. That Sandstorm one was probably I beat that mission with like 6 seconds left on like a 30-minute timer or whatever. Like, real rough, rough stuff.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It is tough.
I will also, man. So at this point, it's like an Ace Combat staple of the last mission. You're going to have to fly in a tight space.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did that do for you when you realized you had to actually fly into that little tiny highway tunnel with your jet?
I mean, aside from like the practicality of it, it's fucking ridiculous to be like, yeah, you're gonna fly your jet through, an underground highway tunnel. Sure, that's what you're doing, but
for like a significant length of time, and then do a miniature dogfight inside a very cramped, confined indoor space.
Yeah. The checkpoints were generous during that mission, so like
I
didn't get as mad as I probably could have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was streaming most of my playthrough of this game, and so there's video evidence of me getting pretty frustrated in there's 20 missions, so let's say like 5 or 6 of them I got like legit pretty mad during. But it's all It all still somehow comes together because those other missions are a lot of fun. And like you said, there's not that many that are just like, score attacks or, even, back
and
in
even
the
where
other
they
games,
they're so different because there's like the one where
Yeah.
you've got to deal with multiple detachment of like ground-based units where all of the aircraft have yet to take off. So it's like, how do you approach that? Versus the one where it's coastal and you've got like the ship groups, but then also the platforms that you can do that real wild. If you fly at them just right, you can take out the core of a platform section and make it collapse.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So one of the cool things that stays cool regardless is they're just going to put you in situations to do really cool shit throughout Ace Combat 7. And I mean, throughout all of them, but AC7, it looks better. It's really smooth to play. You're just constantly being like, this is really awesome. They sell the thrill of flying fast and having air combat and stuff like that. And they sell spectacle really, really well. There's some boss fights with some insane spectacle to them. That's something that I love about the series, is how the thing that you're fighting and the music all tie together to just be like, this is a fucking moment. I'm in it. And it's really, really well executed.
Spectacle really is the name of the game with Ace Combat 7. It knows when it's time to throw a fucking party. Like, I don't know what else to say. It knows when it's time to switch from like a giant offensive where you're taking on multiple fronts of this battle to okay, now it's time for you and one other impossible enemy to just duke it out in a real battle of endurance.
Yeah. And you'll have so you have like big spectacle boss fights, and you also have like Ace Pilot, which basically you're fighting another plane just like your own, but they're really good and they can do crazy shit, like crazy maneuvers that shouldn't be possible within the laws of physics. The difference is in Ace Combat 7, you can do those crazy maneuvers too.
I've seen videos of people doing this sort of stuff. I've never learned, I almost don't want to learn how to do it.
I didn't know how to do it. So you said earlier, and I totally agree with you, that it looks like a sim. It has like a couple things that are simmy, like your plane can ice up and shit like that, but it's arcadey as hell. And there's nothing more arcadey than like flying your plane horizontally, tilting vertically 90 degrees, stopping in midair, and then shooting off vertically and doing these crazy maneuvers.
Doing like the fucking Cobra.
Yeah. This is not real life that we're simulating here. And so in the other games, a lot of those other, Ace Pilot type bosses could do shit like that, but you couldn't. Ace Combat 7 lets you do it. But like you, I didn't know you could, so I didn't do it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't know how, but I've seen the videos and it's like, it is pretty cool to just like stop on a dime in a fucking jet.
I don't need to know how to do that. It's fine. Like I beat the game the old fashioned way, which is buying better and better planes and upgrading them and using missiles that don't exist. Tree. Yeah.
Got a good laugh out of me when I booted it up, and I was like, oh, they have a skill tree in Ace Combat 7, but it's not skills, it's unlockable upgrade parts and new planes on this, just this fucking ridiculous aircraft tree. Yeah. There was one other thing. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say about gameplay is, you mentioned the controls. There are two control schemes, and I beg anyone who's listening or watching this, if you're new to Ace Combat, play with the regular controls. Do not play with what they call beginner or novice. I forget what the term is. Don't play with that. Yeah. Play with the regular Ace Combat controls. You're going to have to learn them. They're different. It doesn't control like Star Fox or other stuff, but I think it's essential to maneuverability and being able to actually like succeed in the game. And the developers are begging people to do it too. Like they like had official responses to bad reviews where the reviewer played with the novice controls, whatever they're called. And they're like, please, we're begging you, play with our control scheme. We put that in there so people could like have another option, but please play with our controls.
The big difference is in the like beginner controls. If you press, up and down, like the plane moves up and down. Yeah. And then if you press like left, the plane turns left or turns, right. Mm-hmm. As opposed to the standard control scheme, the expert or whatever they call the control scheme, where if you hit left or right, you roll the plane. So in order to do a turn, you've got to roll and then lift, like we said earlier in the episode. And I just think that I imagine on the easiest difficulty, the beginner control scheme works fine. But if you're playing on normal, like you need the maneuverability and the specific control of being able to like roll and pitch and yaw all independently.
Yeah, I agreed. The late missions in this game can be really hard. And there's going to be like a ton of planes. You're always going to have that missile alert indicator going off. So you need...
Anytime you're surrounded by drones, oh my God.
Yeah. So you need the maneuverability. So if anyone out there is thinking that this sounds fun, please just allow yourself 15 to 30 minutes to get used to a new control scheme. You'll be fine. It's intuitive after a while, and it is the way to play. Let's do our kind of wrap-ups before we get into spoilers here. So, Derek, if you have any final thoughts in summary about AC7, but also pretend there's someone out there who's never played either this or an Ace Combat game. What do you think is the appeal? What's the selling point for a specific type of gamer, we'll say?
So there are two overarching genres of gamer in my mind. Okay. They're the kind of people who find an experience they like and they chase that, right? Different games in that genre, different games from that series, whatever, but shooter guys, racing game guys, etc., RPG guys. Then you get the people who need variety, right? If you're the kind of person who finds yourself seeking all different kinds of games because they're giving you different kinds of experiences, you are primed for Ace Combat 7 to be something you sure haven't played before, but will want more of. But I don't know, man, if most of what you do is get on and play Counter-Strike or Fortnite, this is, if you're mostly an RPG guy, this isn't going to do anything for you. And there's not enough like this for you to be a flight combat guy.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
So all I can say is if you're the kind of person who likes all different kinds of games, who misses when games felt like they had variety instead of they were all focus tested into specific pigeonholes, Ace Combat will be the cure for what ails you.
Do you agree that Ace Combat 7 is probably one of the best starting points for someone who's brand new to the series?
I mean, unfortunately for most people, it's the only one that's available at all, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, even so, if you could get, 4 and 5 and 6, I still think, I would just say, just play 7. It's good. It's good. Yeah. It is a package of everything that is good in Ace Combat, just about. If you like this, you'll like other Ace Combat games. If you don't like this, I can't fix you.
Agreed. Yeah. There is enough consistency throughout, at least the ones I've played, to say that you can play whichever one is most easily available to you. And if you like it, what you like is probably going to translate to the others, at least, again, within the ones that I've played. So
yeah,
I agree with you. There's just not enough games like this that, maybe Project Wingman or something like that, but you're not going to fire up a lot of things that feel like Ace Combat. Even, I grew up playing Star Fox 64. That doesn't feel like Ace Combat. They're pretty different experiences. And then you're just going to have a really cool emotional ride going through the thrill of the gameplay, but also having the music. And then if you connect with the story, or at least can have fun with where the story goes, I think that this series is really going to speak to you. And I said this on the other episode, the AC5 episode, but it's one of those series where I announce my upcoming podcast schedule and they're like, fuck, Dave's doing another Ace Combat game. It's that type of thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm in, I'm all the way in. So I'm going to play the Japanese version of 3 that has the story not cut out of it. I'm going to play 4 and then play 6 because I have an Xbox 360. So
beautiful.
I'm all set. Yeah.
Remind me, does 5 have the satellite that's coming down at the very end, the last mission?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then I don't remember shit about 6.
Okay.
Every single thing I keep thinking is something that was from 6 turns out to also be from 5.
Yeah.
So 6, I just don't remember what it is.
Well, it's going to have planes. It's going to have cool music. It's going to have explosions. Yeah.
They're going to go real fast and they're going to go real high.
That is correct. Yeah. So, they're just really fucking fun games. They're really cool games. They're extremely well-made games. I find it hard to believe, unless you just like don't want to play a game like this, I find it hard to believe that people are just not going to like them. They're just very good games. So let's do our housekeeping before spoilers. And we always start with the guest. So as I said at the top of the show, Derek is one host of the Super Deluxe Gamescast, or SDGC, as you guys normally say it. So tell people about the show and, what it's all about, where people can find you, all that stuff.
Yeah. So Super Deluxe Gamescast, SDGC for short, is it is a, like, I don't know, man. We got a bunch of amateur nerds together who are really passionate about this stuff to talk about news about the industry on a regular basis, talk about the games. We do some reviews, we do some streaming, we do a bunch of charity work. We do interviews at events like PAX, but the bulk of what we do is the weekly news show every Thursday night. And we just, pull together a couple of news topics that we think are the most important ones of the week. And we, it's a very punky and very like punches above its weight class, progressive, like pro-diversity, pro-labor gaming news show. And it's also like, it's bringing a lot of the casual energy of like, we tend to have a few drinks while we're playing it, right? Like we want to be like fun leftist gaming podcast, not stick in the mud leftist gaming podcast, but also not like dirtbag left. Right. Which we can all use less of. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's SDGC. And then I also do a show called Castle Bravo, which is not video games related, but most nerds will love. It is a history and retrospective and political analysis of the Godzilla movie franchise. Yeah. Which is a bit of a more boutique process for me to make. But I mean, SDGC is what everyone's here for. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people fucking love Godzilla too, and so I mean, I trust that you're doing the right thing on that show. Godzilla's cool, and there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about with some of the Godzilla movies. Some of them are, I think, like a lot of the American ones that I grew up watching are a little bit less substantive, we'll say, but there is a lot to dig into with Godzilla. But SDGC, sometimes I tune into the Twitch show. I listen on the podcast if I miss the Twitch show. But I just really appreciate how you all talk about the current events. You say you yourselves are amateurs, but you have a lot of industry voices on the show. So it's not like you're completely disconnected from people who are like living it and experiencing
well, and
stuff.
I say amateurs, but like, I mean, again, me and John especially have been doing this so long and so consistently, that, I mean, over God knows how many years that we've been doing this and the people we've met, like we have absorbed enough to not be idiots is what I'll say.
You are knowledgeable for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give yourself some credit. Yeah.
So, that plus sparkling personalities.
Absolutely. Yeah. And beautiful faces and all of that. Yeah. So SDGC, if you want to tune in on Thursdays for the Twitch show, but otherwise on all the podcast apps and stuff like that. And I like your reviews because they're short. I don't practice what I preach, I suppose, but you all do lots of new game reviews and stuff, and you just get together for a quick conversation about it.
I really like our review format. We used to try doing a lot of like scripted and written reviews, like spoken out in podcast form. And what we found is that we really like this format of having one or two people who played it, right, including the person who got the review code, and hopefully like at least one person who has not played but is interested and has questions. And we do this like discussion style format of review, which I think that ends up being this very good like conversational tone that feels a lot more like when people are trying to recommend or not recommend a game to a friend. So I think that people actually get a lot out of that format. And it's weird how few outlets or podcasts do reviews in that form. So
yeah, I agree. It's good. It's always a good listen. And you all know what you're talking about too. Like if if you're reviewing the new Dragon Quest game, I know someone's going to know something about Dragon Quest on the show. We're going to have a bunch of different perspectives and histories and stuff like that too. So good stuff. So I'll put links down in the show notes for SDGC and for Castle Bravo so people can check those out. And while I'm talking about myself for the next minute or so, you can go click around, subscribe to some stuff, and await the new stuff coming in. So, supporting this show starts with ratings, reviews. If you're listening to the podcast, likes and comments, subscribing. If you're watching on YouTube, all of that's going to help people find this, which is what we want. And you can join in my Discord server for a lively and friendly community of people. I am working on the Discord server. I'm getting more people into Ace Combat, Derek. There's been a few more people who are like, all right, Dave, so where should I start? So the work is ongoing.
If each of us convinces 2 people and those 2 people each go on to convince 2 people, in a pyramid shaped,
Yeah, exactly. And the world will be healed and I'll be rich and famous. So,
yes.
The Discord server is a great place. There's an invite link in the show notes as well. And then if you want to support what I do monetarily, you can do that at patreon.com/realdavejackson. For as little as $2 per month, you can vote on what games I do on the show and some other cool treats as well. So that is all for the non-spoiler portion of the episode. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, it's going to be full spoiler time for Ace Combat 7. All right, before we get to spoilers for Ace Combat 7, there's actually a lot going on I'd like you to know about. So here we go. First of all, my coverage of PAX East 2025 should be up now, depending on when I get around to doing the voiceover. So if it's not there, it'll be there soon. But be on the lookout for a roundup of all the games I played at PAX East, some real indie hits incoming that I got to try there. So look out for that on YouTube and on the podcast. Also, I did 2 guest appearances on podcasts. I was on the Pixels and Polygons podcast to give some hot takes, just an assortment of spicy takes for your enjoyment. So check out Pixels and Polygons to find out what those hot takes are. And I was on the IndieQuest podcast, which should be releasing the same day that this episode comes out, for a surprise secret roundup of cool indie games to talk about. 4 of us on the show, 4 indie games to go on their ever-growing quest log on the IndieQuest podcast, so please check that out. All of those guest appearances will be down in the show notes so you can find them easily. And as always, I'd like to say thank you to the patrons who helped support the show. Big shout out especially as PAX East just wrapped up, and I could not have made that trip happen without you. So thank you to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Silcanet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, John E., a new patron, Darren Hupke, and many more. Thank you all again. It means a lot to me that you'd choose to support me that way. If anyone is out there and you'd like to join them, you can do so at patreon.com/realdavejackson. And with all that being said, let's get back to full spoilers for Ace Combat 7. All right, we're back, and it's full spoiler time for Ace Combat 7, and the usual disclaimers right out front. We're not going to walk through each mission in the order that they are in the game. We're going to probably talk about the end here in a minute and a half or so. So if you don't want to be spoiled at all, this is the warning. Get out, go play the game. It's fucking cool, and then come back. So just briefly want to go over how fucking Metal Gear Solid this story is. And when I finally figured out what was going on in the story, I was like, I just played Metal Gear Solid 4 a couple months ago. This is like extremely similar. And like I said, me falling in love with Ace Combat and playing through these games at the same time I'm going through the Metal Gear Solid series for the first time. It's, you know, they're 2 different takes on a lot of the same fun ideas, we'll say.
Yeah. Well, Ace Combat's very like what it is that both franchises are completely transparent about the fact that they are about the war economy. Yeah. Right? They are about the way that warfare is used as a tool of economic growth and economic conquest between nations. And the way that, like, there is money to be made off of manipulating combat.
Yeah. The way that Ace Combat 7 kind of deals with that is there's this company, I think it's called Grunder Industries, that's making these drones.
You couldn't make a more villain sounding Grunder Industries. Like, right. Just, call it Bad Guys Incorporated. Fuck.
Well, and even more so because and I didn't catch this, I caught this when I was reading on the wiki, but if you remember from Ace Combat 5, Grunder Industries was the front company for the Gray Men, who were the villains in Ace Combat 5.
The Belkin remnants, yeah.
They're still around. And so like one of the big reveals is it's Belka. Belka is behind the bad shit because they're always behind the bad shit. Even if it doesn't seem like they are, it's actually someone from Belka always in the Ace Combat games I've played. So that's Dr. Schroeder in this game.
It's funny because you've played specifically the ones that Belka's involved with.
The ones that deal with Belka,
that's not true of like 4 or 6 at all.
Okay. So. Maybe something to do with like the time. No, not to do with the timelines. The Belkan War was before a lot of those other games, I think. But,
well, it's the involvement of Erusia. Because it's that continent that, Belka's, to the north of Erusia and,
to the north
of Belka manipulated Yuktobania.
In Ace Combat 5, yeah.
Yeah. But 5 is Osea and Yuktobania.
Right.
Yeah, so it's because they're manipulating against Osea, who are the protagonists of 7. This is fictional ass countries.
Yeah, and they all sound way too similar.
Doesn't help they have Osea, Usia, and Erusia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No,
the capital of Ameria is Grace Maria.
Yeah. So I think it was Osea that beat back Belka in Ace Combat 0, and then Belka tried to get revenge on them in Ace Combat 5.
Through Yuktobania in 5 against Osea.
And now in Ace Combat 7, it doesn't seem like there's that nationalistic, patriotic, lean to it. It's just a fucking rogue, maybe not rogue, but the scientist who is behind masterminding all the evil Metal Gear Solid related shit in Ace Combat 7 is from Belka, because of course he is. Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cool thing, the Metal Gear Solid thing, is they're taking the flight data from Mihai, the ace pilot. They're taking his flight readings and everything like that as he's flying, and they're programming that into the AI of the drones. So instead of having one ace pilot, they'll have as many as they can make, which ends up being the thing you have to stop. It's like
sci-fi, warfare. I've seen this exact plot thread done multiple times before.
Yeah.
But it's a good bit.
It is. When it was revealed, it was like, they're trying to get to the space elevator so they can broadcast the flight data to all the drones. I was like, well, we can't have that. We're going to have to stop that.
Yeah.
So it was good enough for me. But really when I was playing, the main thing was this is the most fucking Metal Gear Solid ass plot, just in close proximity to those games that they're very similar of, instead of the AI controlling the people's nanomachines to all be the same, elite soldiers and stuff like that, we're putting it into flight drones. It just take it off the ground, put it up in the air. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
So the kind of the last mission, the last mission is they got the flight data into 2 of those drones, who are named after Odin's ravens. I don't know if you knew that. I found that on the wiki.
I missed that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Odin's ravens from mythology. Those are the drones you're shooting down. Those have Mihai's flight training. And they're trying to fly
up triggers as well in the process of fighting him.
Right. Yeah. So they were way easier though than Mihai, just saying pretty easy final mission as far as flight combat goes, one-on-one stuff like that.
Mihai's so much worse to fight.
Yeah. He's, I don't know if the game's trying to make a commentary on the difference between a human pilot and a drone pilot with the same data, but Mihai is way harder to fight than the drones are.
Yeah, for sure.
That leads to the space elevator trench run that we were talking about earlier, which is very difficult. And a couple times after you shoot down the drone, they're like, oh, there's no way for you to get out. You're going to have to fly out the top of the space elevator.
Which is a nightmare to actually pull off.
I couldn't I died like 2 or 3 times just trying to get into the thing and get vertical to fly up there. It's very hard. But the audacity of that, just be like the solution. You're going to fly out of the space elevator. Like, I don't know how high those planes can go, but you're in like low orbit by the time you get out of that fucking thing.
Yeah. Just flying directly up, the wind buffeting you around in this tiny little tunnel.
Yep, exactly.
Battling against gravity, trying to make your nose turn towards any given wall.
Yeah. That was another thing that seemed new in AC7, where like you'd have something kind of pulling your plane to one side or the other when you're flying.
Yeah,
the
like
Sandstorm level did that shit too.
Flying in any of the storms does that, and like I like that. Again, in terms of like it's the tension of that's why you want to avoid being inside the clouds, because that's what it's going to do to your plane. Like
right. The space elevator thing ends with a fun little reference to Ace Combat 5, where you get a radio transmission from an astronaut who's coming down from the space station or some shit, and it's Nagase from
Nagase.
Ace Combat
it's
5.
Edge. Hell yeah.
I mean, Ace Combat games usually end with just very unceremoniously, like, your pilots never flew again, or no one knows what they did after the events of the game.
Yeah.
And 5 kind of ended that way too. Yeah. But Nagase apparently became an astronaut, so good for her.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Speaking of references, you had the one moment that you wanted to mention as far as a reference to AC4. So tell me how that moment hit.
So, of course, at this point in the story, the Arsenal birds, in what should have been a surprise to nobody when they first bring up, like, yeah, we have these cool Arsenal bird things. It's really great. Sure would suck if the enemy got a hold of them. Oh, right, wait, the enemy, fucking Always Sunny screen. Yeah. The enemy gets a hold of the Arsenal birds.
Yeah, we're getting an update,
yeah. But, like, it's really interesting because for so much of the game, the threat of the Arsenal birds looms large. The two of them are able to cover nearly the entire continent with their flight range, with their command of the drones. Yeah. There is no safe place from the two Arsenal birds and their drone networks. Yeah. So you end up going and finding Stonehenge, which was the primary superweapon for most of Ace Combat 4. Mm-hmm. And Stonehenge is this like set of 8 railguns that were built to shoot down the asteroids in the backstory. And in Ace Combat 4, you take out 7 of them and end up, there's one that ends up being non-functional for other reasons. But you take out, in the Stonehenge offensive mission, the 7 functioning railguns. Yeah. And this game brings you back to Stonehenge and says, by the way, we're getting the 8th one back up and running because we need this motherfucker. It's on our side now. And you have to defend it instead of attacking. The same map, the same area remade, but you are on the defense instead of the offense. And then in the end, the Arsenal bird comes in, one of the two, with its, giant force field and its, drone army, and they managed to get the 8th Stonehenge cannon up and running just long enough to fire off one fucking shot. Yeah. And it takes out the Arsenal bird. And in that single moment where you do the reverse of Ace Combat 4, you suddenly open up the possibility of victory for this war campaign. Because now they only have one Arsenal bird, and it can't cover. Like, they've lost that impenetrable shield effectively. Yeah. Just a really sick moment, because Stonehenge, for people who started with Ace Combat 4 especially, Stonehenge was the first crazy sci-fi shit that the series threw at them. Because you used to have to deal with Stonehenge would fire off these warheads that would take out any plane that was above a certain altitude. So what would happen is you'd be on a map and they'd be like, oh, by the way, they've got Stonehenge coming your way. You have 10 seconds to get down to under 300 feet or whatever. So you'd have to like find a nearby canyon and get low enough to almost be scraping the sides to avoid that. So just what a moment. What a moment to bring Stonehenge back.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And your role in that thing, because you're not operating the air guns, is the Arsenal bird is too fast because like the targeting system or whatever is broken. So someone has to manually aim this railgun, which is ridiculous, but very cool. So you have to go shoot out the propellers to slow down the Arsenal bird so that someone can manually shoot it. And you get it done. It's a fucking cool moment. The both times you fight Arsenal birds in AC7 is like crazy. Anytime in these games you're flying alongside something that big up in the sky or fighting something that big, they really sell that spectacle or that scale really well. Those moments are always great. So that Stonehenge mission for me, because I didn't have the familiarity, was just, quote, air quotes, just an exhilarating boss fight against this giant fucking thing, this force of destruction. Like you said, turning the tide in the war. I think like pretty soon after this, they go and they take the Erusian capital and stuff like that. I think
almost it's either the next mission or the mission after. Like in the briefing, they basically go, and by the way, we've suddenly taken back half the continent.
Right.
Because literally, just not having the arsenal, the second arsenal bird, has allowed the superior military strength and tactics to, and that's always kind of weird because it feels anticlimactic for you to suddenly like, what do you mean they just did it without me? But like, yeah, man, there's a whole army out there.
Yeah, you're one guy in a plane. So
yeah, you're taking out the most important targets. But like, now that the war front is opened back up, the military did its job. And now you're on to the next front. So
yeah. Pretty soon after that, so like after you take out the capital, it kind of introduces what I think is probably a pretty divisive gameplay mechanic to basically the rest of the game, where the thing that happens in the story is like some rogue plane destroys a satellite, and then the satellite breaks up, and I learned about this kind of like theory.
Kessler syndrome.
Yeah, where more debris in orbit causes more collisions, and then just exponentially more and more collisions until like global communications get wiped out. So after you take the capital city, it ends with like, it's really anticlimactic because there's no radio. No one can talk. You're just kind of like, I guess I'll fly home now. And then it leads to this thing the rest of the game where you, for the most part, can't instantly identify friend or foe. You have to like line them up, get close to them. I mean, it might even be as simple as like get close enough where you can see what their plane is and be like, okay, that's a friendly. And you get yelled at if you shoot without IDing because you might shoot down friendlies.
Well, and it's
what
interesting.
Did you think about this?
So, and to be fair, this really only lasts for a couple of missions, right? Because after that, they start going like, okay, well, technically this is true, but we know that all of these are enemies. So blah, 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 right?
Eventually,
yeah. For a few missions, you have this area where everything you deal with, you don't know if it's a friendly or not. Yeah. And I think it's an interesting twist. I think it makes the tone of that night battle in the city.
Yeah.
So interesting because you're getting fired at, but like sometimes you get close and you realize they're an ally and they just stop firing because like they didn't know what you were either. So I think it's interesting and really sells the idea of like the chaos of what's going on because of the lack of that electronic identification. I think that it sells the idea of you and your team, because you're the ones who are not firing first, asking questions later, like being the stabilizing element in the battle in a sense. And I think it could be so much more frustrating if they threw that mechanic at like a big furball. You know what I mean? Where you've got to deal with like just countless planes in the air and you don't know who is and isn't. For the most part, the bulk of targets in those missions are going to be ground-based targets or like helicopters that move slowly. So you get a little more of that time. Like they know they've got to pull back and give you the breathing room to focus in on a target and let it click, green or blue.
Yeah. So. Or focus in on like an area, because that one in the city, you're escorting like a truck that's trying to leave the city. So you don't have to clear everything off the map. You just kind of be, the truck's going this way. I need to focus on this sector. ID the targets, take them out, stuff like that. I thought it was pretty annoying in some of the missions to do this IDing, but like it is an interesting twist, and it kind of sells what's going on in the story.
It might have worked best if it was only the city night mission.
It's too many missions. There was a couple like, I want to say a mission like 17 or 18 where I was like, fuck, they're still doing this. But luckily, like you said, the last one where it's like you're fighting the last Arsenal bird and all the drones, and there's like 100 fucking drones in the air. They're all enemies. You don't have to deal with all that. So I think if you were to talk to a bunch of people who play this game and be like, what new stuff did you not love? I think this is something that people may or may not, find annoying. I was kind of like,
I'm not in love with it. I see how it provides variety. It might have been better in one or two fewer missions.
I think I'm with you there.
I think that the game is clearly dedicated to the concept of providing mission variety. Yes. And maybe that's why I think it should be in fewer missions, is it does go on for a small stretch of missions where it wears itself out in terms of its novelty. And the novelty might have been heightened had it been there less.
Yeah. There were two things about the story that I thought would be bigger things than they actually were, and I wanted to see if you had a take or an idea about, did I miss something, or were they kind of just loose ends that didn't connect to anything?
Yeah.
There's the mission earlier. It's the radar mission where you have to pop up out of the clouds, where they kind of ID friends and foes, and they miss ID one of your squad mates, and they get shot down out of the sky. And that kind of, there's another Ace Combat game that gets into like, you get really bad mission intel and it starts to really fuck you up. And I thought it was going to be a thing in this game. Didn't really connect back to anything as far as I could tell.
It feels a bit like it is a dropped plot thread in a lot of ways. So I think there is enough going on in that mission to make it exceptionally clear what happened, that it was not an accident. It's funny to see people say that it's left vague whether this really was a mistake or was on purpose. The specific person who, full band, the specific teammate who gets shot down, starts the mission off by talking about how he found like intel and information on, and here's the problem, is I don't remember what it was. It was like dirt on Osea, but I don't, the country that you are flying for and are imprisoned under, but I don't remember. Well, they don't really, it's vague, right? But he found out some shit he wasn't supposed to find out. And Bandog, the AWACS, keeps saying like, hey man, are you sure you know what you're talking about? Like, just want to remind you, I decide when you die. Like he says, there's also a bit where the full band says something like, in a war like this information like this can be life or death. And Bandog literally chuckles and goes, I guess you're right about that.
Yeah.
And like if you replay it knowing what's going to happen, knowing that at the end of the mission, once you defeated all the enemies, the AWACS is going to tag Full Band as an enemy so that he gets shot down. Like you are literally hearing the foreshadowing of Full Band found out information he wasn't supposed to, and your AWACS like made it clear that he was a threat that had to be taken out because of what he knew. But you never find out what that information was. And Bandog, the AWACS, never faces consequences for that. Like you and Count leave the penal squadron before anything really goes, like, you know, to me, like there should have been either payoff on that information where we found out that like there was, as hard as it was, like that was the right thing to do, that like Full Band had to die to keep that secret because it's that important. Yeah. You know, according to the powers that be. Or flip side is that Bandog should have had karmic retribution for doing that. And neither of those two things happen. And yeah, it just feels like a dropped thread. To be fair, there is a ton of evidence in the game that a lot of shit was up in the air and got changed around up till the final minute. So there's a lot of stuff that changed frequently. And I think maybe part of what we got feeling so fragmented is because they couldn't nail it down.
Oh, you mean with development?
Yes. Yeah. There's so much like unused voice lines and unused like mission like fragments in the data that show that like they really constantly changed what they were doing with this game. So
yeah. Okay, yeah, so that foreshadowing, you would miss that. And like I said before, if it's radio chatter during combat, I missed 100% of that because I can't focus on that. So that's good context to have. The other one is the one, I think it's like mission 17 or something. It's really late in the game. It's the one where you take the castle, because after you take the capital of Erusia, their military splits into like these autonomous groups, and some want to fight, some don't. The ones who want to fight go and try and take the space elevator again, stuff like that. Yeah. One of them just kind of like holes up in this castle. I think they're just like finding shelter, and you basically just go kill them and take the castle. And I think it's the last time you fight Mihai in the end of that mission. That one was kind of setting up like a very clear, like, you're the bad guys in this mission. You're killing people who are not trying to fight anymore. They're just trying to live. And I thought that was going to be a thing toward the end of the game that you had to kind of like reckon with, where, you know, you could just take it on face value where like, hey, we need this castle to launch our final assault. These, you know, quote, these innocents, they have to go in order for us to accomplish this. You're going to feel bad about it, but that's as far as they took it, I think. It
feels like a plot thread that was dangled, but was like retooled slightly, but they didn't want to get rid of it entirely because the mission design is pretty good, right? With the castle on the hill, and then the like radius of defenses is like a pretty decent map design. Plus the fact that isn't it literally called Shilage? Right, like it's clearly
it is
tied to Mihail. So like that also being the place where you have your final battle with him, you know, but like it doesn't fully come together.
Yeah, it's just the thing where I think, especially when you're playing, you know, games centered around war, when you start to have a mission like that, it really pops, and you're like, oh, okay, so they want you to know that you're doing a bad thing here. Whereas like a lot of the other missions, they'll have civilian things that you can blow up. They're not mission targets, but you get points for them. You can blow up, you know, trucks and, you know, water facilities and stuff like that, warehouses, etc. You know, you can do that, and you can think about the repercussions or the morality of that. This one was just like, no, like the people are like over the radio, like, hey, we're not fighting. Like, please, like, can we not, you know, but you do your thing. And then it's just kind of like, then the game goes into the climax right after that. So it's like not a part of the end of the story It's just a thing that happens along the way.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Speaking of the climax of the story, so we wanted to talk about that Daredevil moment. So you have, I forget what the last couple missions are, but the last mission is a 2-parter, I think. Or maybe it's one of those ones where it's like 2 missions in succession without a break in the middle.
You have 2 missions in succession that don't have a cutscene break, and each one is itself multiple parts. Because mission 19, you start with the gigantic furball of like
the drones. Yeah.
So well, it's so many enemy planes because before the Arsenal bird shows up, and it's where you have multiple like F-22s, right? Su-50, whatever, like a lot of higher end planes mixed in, and it's just so many jets that you're fighting that it's like never over. Then the Arsenal bird shows up, and you've got an insane amount of drones. You are unable to touch the Arsenal bird because of the shield.
Yeah.
And you're hearing, you know, the story stuff going on over the comms of like the princess and the scrap queen, like trying to do whatever they've got to do inside the space elevator to disable the shield. And that's where like in that scripted bit, you know, the music, you know, in Daredevil builds the tension, moment of silence. They succeed, the shield drops, and then the fucking choir comes in and the whole orchestra comes in, and it's like, now it's time to go, go, go. You can take this thing down. What a moment. Yeah,
before the choir kicks in, it's a single voice, just like a really powerful female vocalist who comes in with that melody. And it's, you've had, I want to say maybe there was a point earlier where like, a choir or maybe like a soft choir.
There is a male choir that builds in the like building tension bit right before the shield drops, but they're doing more of a rhythmic chant than like a long drawn out, you know, choir like note. And it's after that point when all the voices come in together and do that push.
Right. Kind of like thinking through the different ways that melody is used throughout the game. It's mostly just like an orchestra playing the melody. And it's, with a couple of exceptions, it's usually pretty subdued. It's just kind of like it's there, we're bringing the melody back, but it's not flying. It's not, you know, a big moment yet.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple songs where it is, but it just feels stronger in Daredevil because it is that single vocalist who starts that big thing, and then the other voices join in. But then
when they come back in the end with all the voices and the full orchestra, they're also doing not just a higher volume but a higher pitch of like, I'm not a music person again, but like the notes have moved up in the scale, right? It is more exuberant, it is more defiant, it is more powerful in that final repetition of it.
Which is nothing like a key change to really punch.
A key change, that's what
through.
it is. Yes.
Yeah. It's great. I went back and watched my video of my stream of doing that, and just like the moment when the shield falls away, that voice kicks in, and it's triumphant. Like it's the moment where it's like, okay, it's fucking go time. Let's go take this thing down. And then it just all the Ace Combat games, they excel in these situations where you're fighting, you're trying to shoot down this massive thing in the sky. The music's going nuts. It's just like they build these moments really well. And, you know, like you said, the beginning of Daredevil is it starts out so quiet. It's just like a really soft voice. And then like it kind of builds up. And that
little gentle synth, you know.
It's really, really good that they hit that moment. It's a home run. It's like on par with the final mission in Ace Combat 5 where the Unsung War is playing. Which that has a very different feel to the vocals to it. Similar to Archange from the AC7 soundtrack. Anytime you're flying in Ace Combat and you get like, you know, like Latin chants or something, you know, some shit's about to happen. It's always good. But yeah, that moment's great. And that mission's really hard. It felt earned when you're able to get through that. There's so many drones. You have like 25 friendly pilots with you in that mission. They don't do shit. You have to do everything by yourself. It's one thing that like I've heard. Maybe it was 6 that really like leaned into wingman commands and stuff. 0 does that too, but I don't know if it's real or if it's just pretending that they do stuff. But I would love to have a little help. Just take out some of those drones for me.
What about no?
Yeah, how about it? Best I can do is I can hover. I'm in a jet, but I'll just hover out here.
I'm just off screen doing really important things, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah, so that last thing is so good. And taking down the Arcbird is great. And then you have the trench run. You fly into fucking outer space, the upper atmosphere or whatever. And let's see. Were there other missions that you thought were cool and deserved to be shouted out before we wrap up?
In terms of just like insane. I mean, I think we've touched on the biggest moments to me. At various points here. People just need to play the game. People just need to play this game.
And even if someone's here with us toward the end of the spoiler section, they've been spoiled on what happens in the story. We've talked about the biggest moments. Even the missions that are more, less bombastic, less memorable, they're still really fucking cool. Like, I can't think of a single mission where I was like, that was boring, Yeah. There's always something. Whether it's the music boring. Or a cool objective or something, there's always something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Ace Combat 7, good video game.
Good game. Good game. Make more. Make another.
Yes. It's one of those games, it's kind of like a meme now or whatever, but like sometimes you'll just be playing a game and just be like, fucking video games, man. They're so cool. And Ace Combat is just one of those series. You're just like, fucking, I can't imagine, whatever I could have done with this 2 hours I spent playing Ace Combat 7, it wouldn't have been as cool as playing this game for the most part. Video games are just great.
God. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, Derek, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and talk about Ace Combat with me. Like I said, as soon as you responded, I was like, oh, I play enough of these. We'll make sure we get you here for one of them. I'm glad that 7 was the game.
Yeah. And you know what? It was wonderful to have an excuse to go back and play it for a 4th time.
Yeah.
Since its release. That's the thing. I don't do a ton of replaying games and have played through this campaign start to back 4 times since it came out in 2019. So that should tell you it's a good game.
Mm-hmm. That says all it needs to say right there. We know this game is great, and if anyone is listening and wants to give it a try, it's always cheap. No matter what platform you play on, you can even play this on the Switch.
I was gonna say it got a Switch version not long ago, so
yeah,
the Switch version is apparently pretty good. So
yeah, it's there on Steam at least. It's like $5 most of the time, so you can get it, you can play it. And then maybe go explore some of those older games in the series. That's one of the things I hope. I hope with some of those, if Sony really gives a shit about PS Plus classics, they'll put Ace Combat 4, 5, and 0 on there. That's how I know they'll care. That's how I will know that they care, we'll say. Otherwise, they're still playing until that point.
Nothing.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thank you again. Good conversation as always. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone who's listening all the way to the end. One more call for you to check out Castle Bravo if you love Godzilla, and to check out SDGC if you like the weekly news and video games with a good perspective behind it. Again, there's links down in the show notes to all of that stuff. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Hey everyone, my name's Darren Hupke. I'm a writer, publisher, and podcaster. My podcast is called Pixels and Polygons. Each week I sit down with a guest and ask one simple video game question. It's a random topic each week and it leads to a fun conversation. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform every Friday, and you can read more about it at pixelsandpolygons.net.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCoy.
With many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.